Hi, everybody. I wanted to make up a quick little video here to help everyone with our first assignment, that configure router on a stick Inter-VLAN routing. Had a few assignments already come in, gave some people some feedback and everything. So I just wanted to make up a quick little video, help kind of explain a few things, help you finish up that assignment, and just so you guys can see how we actually make this router on the stick part. If you guys remember, class last week, I showed you guys how we did the legacy Inter-VLAN routing, where essentially I had two, I had another line here, which would, so we would essentially have, a line for VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 30. So, as we can see, that's going to be pretty wasteful when we go, if we do it that way. And that's one of the big problems with legacy Inter-VLAN routing is it used up a port pretty much for every VLAN. This router on the stick, we essentially combine everything here into one cable. And that's a trunk, so we've got a trunk setting up here. Now, I'm not going to really touch on the connection between S1 and S2 today, but that's going to be a trunk as well. But let's focus just on this part right there, the router and the switch. Let's just focus on this part. And we'll set that up here. So I'm going to scroll down to where that is, because that is the configure the Inter-VLAN routing on the router. So a few assignments that have come in, I've had a few of the students have tried to set this part up on the switch. Now remember, the router, that's where, so all the IP addresses are here. I had a few assignments come in. Students were trying to put IP addresses on the VLANs on the switch, which is close. I mean, I see your thinking behind it, but the IP addresses and everything, so all those are going to get set up here on the router. So I made up a quick little, so here's what you'll probably get presented with sometime. You need to set up sub interfaces on the stick part. We need to set up sub interfaces on the stick. So, and it's usually going to, I'm using these numbers, guys, to kind of help you, keep everything straight. These numbers could be totally different, but to make things a little simpler, VLAN 10 is for this IP address, this default gateway in subnet 10. And we're also just going to make it our sub interface .10 right there. Because this could be a .100. We could make it really any, these numbers could all be different. We're just trying to keep them the same for classroom purposes, just so you guys can make that connection. Okay, so let's go in. So, if we were following the other one, it says, well, you got to activate the port first, and then you go in and you configure the sub interfaces for each VLAN and specify the IP address. Okay. And we're going to use that 802.1 encapsulation. Okay, well, let's get started. So let's do it the right way here, guys. Let me grab a PC and let's do that, and let's grab a console cable, and let's just pretend we're doing it here in real life. Let's connect into the console of the router. Let's go here over to PC 1. Let's go to the desktop and start our terminal, which, in real life, we'd be starting up TerraTerm. But this is, so in the packet tracer world, we're going to start up our terminal software program. And no, I don't need to do the configuration, and there we go. So I'm here in the router. Type enable to get into privileged exec mode. Let's now type configure terminal to get into global config mode. Well, let's do what they said in the assignment first. Let's activate interface F01 on the router. So interface F0/1. No shut, and there it goes. As we can see, we've got some action here occurring on our network. I guess you could also create the sub interfaces first and then go into the interface for F01 and then just turn it all on at the same time. So it really doesn't matter what process you do it in, but eventually you will need to turn on the main port for F01, F00, G0/1, whichever port you're dealing with. All right, let's exit out of there. Now let's start creating these sub interfaces here. So, I'll type it all out. Interface F0/1.10. So we're creating a .10 sub interface inside, or so to say, inside F01. And there it goes. We see it gets created there. And now, as we are in a sub interface for that one, best thing to do, first thing, encapsulation .1q. And here's where I think a lot of students get confused. Here, it would make sense to do VLAN 10 here. It would make sense to do that. Let me just hit that, and you're going to hit, oh wait, you can't do that. So I think a lot of people are getting confused because you actually don't type VLAN in there. You just type the VLAN number 10 or whatever that corresponding number is. So there's, like I said, guys, it would make sense if we would type VLAN 10, because what you're saying is encapsulate this using the 802.1 protocol and put it on VLAN, and this is for VLAN 10. But you actually don't need to put the VLAN part. You just need to put the number. So encapsulation.1q10. Here's where it's good to put a description. So we can just put on here, we'll just name it, we'll just give it a name, VLAN 10 there, just so if we see it, we know what it is. It's described that way. So encapsulation, a description. What's the last thing we needed to do? Yeah, IP address. So let's put an IP address on this guy. So 192.168.10.1. Now, is that everything we need? What happens if I do that? No, I'm not quite complete. Now, a few students tried to do the /24, which that would be awesome if we could just do that, right? If we do that, it says, nah, we still can't do that. So on this, we actually have to type out the dotted decimal format of /24. And there it is. So the 3 steps for the sub interfaces, well, we create it, we encapsulate it, we then add a description for it, and then don't forget to put an IP address on that. And guys, it never hurts to do a no shut just to make sure, although once you turn the no shut on the main one, it should turn them all on. But I like getting in that. No shut's easy. It's easy to type out. Always just kind of type it in. So now here's the easy part. Since you've got that first one, now you can use that up arrow to really help you out here. So let me exit out of that sub interface. And now I'm back in global config mode. Now let's do VLAN 20. Okay, so let's do VLAN 20 here. So up arrow. There we go. Let's get in. So interface F0/1.20. We're getting into that sub interface. Creates it. Again, do my up arrows again. So I need to encapsulate it for, and here's where you don't want to mess up. You want to make sure, okay, I'm encapsulating this for VLAN 20. Hit enter there. Let's do a description, and let's just type VLAN 20. Oops, can't have a space in between those. It's just got to be one word. So there's our description, VLAN 20. Now let's get the IP address, our last step. And again, don't forget, we've got to change that IP address to match our VLAN 20. I hit enter, and there we go. And might as well no shutdown. And let's do it again. Like I said, guys, once you get the first one, it's really easy. So now let's do VLAN 30. So interface F01.30, created it. Don't forget to encapsulate it and put it in VLAN 30. So essentially we're telling it, you are carrying the traffic for VLAN 30. Let's do a description, VLAN 30. And finally, let's get the IP address. And remember, always check it here, make sure we're in the 30 subnet. And there that is. Let's just do no shut. So there's that one, but we're not quite done yet. There's always going to be a native VLAN for these sub interfaces. I mean, I shouldn't say there's always going to be. There should be a native VLAN for these sub interfaces. So this is carrying all the untagged traffic. So let's create that final one. So let's go, and actually let me just do, let's do exit so we can get back out of that one. And let's do F0/1.99. There it is. Let's encapsulate it for VLAN 99. Let's add a description. But in the description, let's also put native here. So we know it's the native somewhere, so we see it in the description. And finally, we don't have to put an IP address for this one. We don't need to do that for this. So let me do a no shut on that one, and let's exit. And guys, so let me exit out of that, and let's just do a show IP interface brief here, just to see what we're looking at. And it looks like we are pretty much ready to go on this end. Fast Ethernet 1 is up. Our 3 sub interfaces are up and ready to go. They've got the right IP addresses in. Our native VLAN is there, up and ready to go. So that was that step right there, part 4. That's pretty much part 4 right there, guys. Creating that stick part. Now, remember, VLANs and all that stuff live on here. So, you know, I'm kind of jumping around, but here's where you would create the VLANs and assign the switch ports. So let's just do a few here real quick. And actually, let's do it the right way. I'll grab the console cable here and plug it into the console. And let me just close that down since we've got a new session coming here. So there we go. We are in the switch now. So creating VLANs is easy. I think a few of you in the assignments I saw tried to go into interface VLAN 10. Let me just do that just so you can see. But guys, you're actually logging into interface VLAN 10, and you never actually, and I mean, it might create it, but there's a better process. Let's do, show VLAN brief. Yeah, on that one, you logged into the interface for VLAN 10, but it never really creates it. So guys, we have to go into global config mode and do VLAN 10. And then, oh, there it goes. Now it's up and rolling. And I know I'm in the configuration of the VLAN now. Now here's where I would name it. Let's just go, users A. There. VLAN 20. Name. Users B. VLAN 30. Name. Users C. And let's just create everything here. VLAN 99. Name, and that's our native. And while we're here, guys, let's just do VLAN 66. We've been doing that here recently. Let's just name that our parking lot VLAN, because that's where all of our unused ports are going to go here shortly. So there we go, guys. I created the VLANs. Now let's take a look at what it looks like now when I do show VLAN B. Ah, look at that. Now I've got all my VLANs. Finally, guys, let me end by throwing the first 8 ports onto VLAN 10. So configuration terminal. If you guys remember, right, we have an interface. Let me do a question mark. Interface range. Don't forget about that command and really save you some time, especially if you're selecting like 8 ports in this situation. Interface range F0/1 to 8, sorry, 1 to 8, I want to select the first 8 ports. And there we go. I'm in the first 8 ports here. Now I can, it's asking me to assign the switch ports to VLANs. Here we go. I'm going to assign switch ports to the VLANs. First, I need to make it switch port mode access, right? These are access ports. We're going to be connecting into hosts. Let's set these as switch port mode access. And now is where we would do switch port access VLAN 10. So I'm basically saying everything in here, throw it on VLAN 10. There we go. Let's hit exit. Let's hit exit again. Let's do the show VLAN brief. And yes, take a look at that. That's looking a little bit better. All these ports are still on VLAN 1, the default one. And now these first 8 ports are now on VLAN 10, the user's A VLAN. Okay, guys, hope that helped. Like I said, just something to help you out with the homework there. I'd seen a few come in, just had a few minor errors. I think this video here kind of addressed a lot of those errors. Remember, VLANs, the router doesn't care about VLANs. The switch doesn't care about IP addresses. I saw a few of you had applied IP addresses to the VLANs on the switch. Remember, guys, keep in mind, switches don't care about IP addresses. Unless it only cares about that one IP address that we put onto it so we can access it remotely. But a switch doesn't need IP addresses. Routers need IP addresses. Switches have VLANs. So you create your VLANs here. You're going to assign them to ports there. And just to remember, keep those separate. Some things live up on the router level, the network level. Some things live down here on the switch level, the data link layer. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, and hope that helps out with assignment 1.